Welcome back. We're coming in for another round of composition basics, and this time we're going to talk about the horizon line. So the horizon line in photographs is where the sky meets the earth. And now that isn't necessarily to say where the sky meets the top of a mountain or where the sky meets the top of a building. It's really where the flat part of the earth ends, the horizon itself. So luckily we live in Minnesota, so if you've driven out of the cities, you've probably seen a plain, a very flat expanse of land. And that space where the earth kind of disappears and melts with the sky is the horizon. And sometimes we see it and sometimes we don't. But still, that flat spot where buildings come out of, where trees come out of, where mountains come out of, that is the horizon line. Now, this rule is closely related to the rule of thirds, as you'll be using those guidelines to match up where your horizon line goes. Try not to put the horizon line in the middle of your picture. It can tend to be pretty boring. If you want to focus on the foreground or things that are close to you, you want to put your horizon line on the upper third. That gives it the most space in the foreground. Anything below the horizon line is in the foreground. Now, alternatively, if you want to focus on distant landscape or the sky, put your horizon line on the lower third. Anything above the horizon line is in the background. Anything around the horizon line is in the midground, because sometimes it'll kind of overlap and go between foreground and background. These are just guidelines, and I do encourage experimenting, especially in the case of our digital cameras. It's completely free. There's no investment. If you don't like it, erase it and do it again. So, some examples. When you put your horizon line on the upper third, the focus is on the foreground. Okay, now we're going to move on to the horizon line on the lower third, which puts the focus on the background. Hopefully these examples have been helpful as you think about how to frame both vertically or horizontally. With your horizon line, you do want to try to keep it straight. It seems obvious, but it's a pretty common mistake. And in your vertical pictures, it's less obvious. It's easier to make it seem straighter than it is. In your horizontal pictures, it can be very obvious. And when you have those askew lines, it can really affect the feel of the photograph. So if you think about it, we see the Earth flat. That's part of why flat earthers are still around in this day and age. So when we have it kind of tilted or angled, it can kind of make us feel like we're falling off. And that's why you want to keep your horizon straight in pictures. If you're taking this as a digital photo, we can adjust it on the computer or on your iPad, even in your After Effects. You can just rotate it just enough to fix it and make those lines straight. My next example is one where they very, very clearly disregarded that rule. Next up, we'll be talking about using lines, symmetry, and patterns.